Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Perfect Timepiece channel. My name is Josh, and today we are going to be reviewing, or comparing I should say, the Orient Ray II. This was loaned to me by my buddy Logan, and we're going to be comparing it to the Christopher Ward C60 Trident Pro 600. Now, these are very different watches. The Orient is under $200 and the Christopher Ward is $1,000, but I think the results of this video are actually going to surprise you, so definitely stay tuned to see the total score and to see which one is crowned a winner. I am going to switch up the camera angles so you can get a better look at both of these watches, and I will see you then. Hello guys, and as you can see, I have switched up the camera angles. Today we are going to be comparing the Orient Ray II on the left to the Christopher Ward Trident Pro 600 meters on the right. Now I know a lot of you are very sick of hearing about Christopher Ward, but these are two divers that I really love and I just wanted to compare them. So before I hop on in to the video, I would like to announce that you can purchase the Orient Ray II here down in the description down below this video. And in addition, the Orient Ray II is on a perfect timepiece, brown leather strap with some nice cream stitching there. So if you have ordered one of these bad boys, or if you already own an Orient Ray II, I would like to congratulate you on your purchase because it's a great watch. And also, I would like to say, if you want to give it a new look, definitely go to our website, shop.perfecttimepiece.com, and check out this strap. So let's get on to the actual comparison. The first thing that we're going to be comparing these wonderful two watches here is value, or the different, what these watches offer to the consumer for the price. This is basically just a general overview of these two watches. So overall, I would have to say that the Ray II is pretty outstanding for the price. And if you've ordered one, you probably agree with me. But if you haven't ordered one, I would seriously suggest it. The only real downsides to this watch would be the mineral crystal protecting the face of the watch. The screw-down crown is a little bit hard to operate, but other than that, it is a pretty stellar watch. There are a few places where Orient cut corners. The frequency of the movement is only 3 Hertz, but if you don't care about the sweeping part of the second hand, then that probably doesn't matter much to you. And also the bracelet that this comes on is a little bit worse than the Christopher Ward, but honestly this watch is a quarter of the price, so I wouldn't really expect them to be comparable. So yeah, the Orient Ray II, it has that wonderful, wonderful blue sunburst dial with incredible finishing on the hour indices. It's also worth noting that I really, really like the design of the watch. It has a very modern but tool-like look and feel to it. I really like the sword-styled hands and the red tip second hand. I think the contrast of the blue and the red is simply amazing. I think the polishing on this side here and the brushed finishing at the front of the watch is also really good. As I said, this watch does have a few negatives, but I do think that this watch is, it just blows away its competition, especially at the price point. And honestly, I think this is probably the best diver, the best automatic diver under $200. So for that reason, I'm going to give this watch an 8.5 out of 10 in value. There are a few places where Orient could have improved, but overall, it's a pretty good piece. So up next, we have the Christopher Ward. I know you guys are, let me open this up here, excuse me. I know you guys are pretty much done seeing this watch, But I do think that it is worth comparing because I know this was actually my first watch that got me into the collecting game. And if you're looking for a diver, then you're probably aware of the C60 line by Christopher Ward. It's worth noting that this is the older version of the Christopher Ward line. They have one with their newer logo at the 9 o'clock position. I actually don't like that watch as much as this one, but they are pretty much identical in terms of case material and movement. So it's very similar to the current one offered. I believe this watch is $990 from Christopher Ward's website. It has some really, really nifty features, and it has a lot of the things that the Orient is missing. It has a sapphire glass. As you can see, it's a little bit reflective here. It has a very nice ceramic bezel that feels incredibly solid to use, although it is a little bit hard to turn. And then it also has a nice signed screw-down crown. I'm not sure if you guys are able to see that there. It's signed, has a nice little embossed case back, has a signed buckle. This is like my daily beater watch, so I do love it immensely, but that's actually what makes the results of this comparison so crazy, but that's why there's a little bit of scratches and dings on this, so I apologize that it's not pristine, but it is pretty nice. You can see the galoche pattern on the dial there. Pretty amazing for this price point. Unfortunately, I think that this is a pretty average watch for the price, especially compared to Oris or Hamilton. The level of finishing is, I would say, half a step above Hamilton and probably on par with the Oris watches that I have seen. So, if this was $500, it would probably get, a 9 in value. But honestly, the way it is at $900, I would have to give it an average score or a 7 out of 10 in the value category. Now let's move on. That was kind of a general overview. The rest of these little categories shouldn't take as long. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the movement of these two watches. This should be a fairly short and concise little category. So starting with the Orient Ray II, this has the Orient F6922 movement. It operates at 3 Hertz. You can see there at the 3 o'clock position, it has a day and date window. And it's water resistant. This watch is water resistant to 200 meters. It has 22 joules and approximately 2 days of power reserve. So when you compare that to the specs of the Christopher Ward, they are fairly similar. Now, for the price, I think that this is an above average movement. A lot of the watches under $200, the movements don't hack or hand wind, and this movement does, which I think is what sets it apart from the competition given this price bracket. So I think it would get an 8 out of 10 in the movement category. Now moving on to the Christopher Ward, let me set down the Orient there. The Christopher Ward is, it's Swiss. It's not a Japanese movement, which the Orient is, as the name would imply. But it also has a 4 Hertz operating frequency, which means the second hand actually ticks 2 more times every second than the Orient. This means that the second hand is just a tad bit smoother, and if you were to slow down some video and compare the two, you could actually count the ticks. But this comes with either a 2824, an ETA 2824-2 movement, or a Sellita SW200 movement. This has a very standard power reserve, again, of approximately 2 days, but this just has a date complication at the 3 o'clock position. So they are fairly standard movements. I would say for this price category, it is above average. It's a nice Swiss movement. And I really cannot complain. I've had no issues with this. Winding it feels incredibly solid, and it feels like you're getting your money's worth. So for that reason, I would also give the Christopher Ward an 8 out of 10. Now moving on to design, this is a largely subjective category, but personally I think the Orient has a very utilitarian design. As I said before, it looks a bit like a tool watch, something that you would actually use diving, although not on this leather strap. I wouldn't take it diving on the leather strap. There are a few things in terms of usability that I don't like about this watch, but overall, as I said in the kind of overview, I really do like the design and look of this piece. I think the bezel is properly sized compared to the dial. Sometimes with watches like these, the bezel is either too big or too small for the dial. And I think they did a really nice job with the hour indices and kind of the polish on them. I'm not sure if you guys can kind of see the way that they play in the light there. But in addition, I think the case finishing is really nice. I like kind of the little grain here on the bezel. And then I also like the dolphin design on the back. It's not embossed or stamped into the metal, but I think it's laser etched or something like that. So it does look pretty nice, given the price point. So I do think the design category is largely subjective. That being said, I really, really like the design of this piece. I think it stands out from the crowd, and for that reason, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 in the design category. Now, moving on to the Christopher Ward, I think in this category, the Christopher Ward has the upper hand. I don't know why I keep buckling this. It just takes time to unbuckle it. But this is more of a refined piece. This has more of a dressy diving theme. This isn't necessarily a watch that I would wear, deep sea scuba diving for 20 years. This is something that I would wear maybe to a cocktail party, an important board meeting, rather than actually, going out and roughing up the watch too much. And that's because, everything is kind of nice and slim and very well refined. You can see that with the hour indices, the nice slim second hand with the trident at the back there. And it's all just very stylized and I think, overly nautical. And for that reason, I think this theme is much more tied together than the Orient is. And also you can see the case back here has the little trident logo with the guilloche wave pattern. Overall, it just feels like a really solid diver. It feels just a little bit better put together than the Orient Ray II. And for that reason, I think it just barely beats it out by half a point, so it earns a 9 out of 10 in the design category. So let us move on here to the next category. Oh my gosh, the Christopher Ward is not cooperating. I'm going to take points off just for that. No. Let's move on to usability. So I do have a few gripes with the Orient in terms of its usability. The bezel can be really, really hard to turn, so much so that it's not even worth showing you because these gloves are a bit slippery and the bezel can be hard to turn. When you're wearing it on your wrist, though, and you can press pretty hard and it actually works. Additionally, unscrewing the crown is pretty difficult. These are really, really minor gripes, but again, these watches, and I think this actually attests to the quality of the Orient, but these watches are pretty comparable in terms of usability. The Orient has 200 meters of water resistance, so some people go crazy with certifications. I actually haven't looked up to see if this watch has any certifications, if it's diver certified or whatever. If that means something to you, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do a little bit more research to see if this is something you actually want to go diving with. But for me, wearing it through the city, wearing it desk diving, which is primarily the diving that I do, I think it is superb, and I think it would definitely weather a slight rainstorm or even a torrential rainstorm pretty well. I would go swimming with the piece, I would shower with it, I would even go into the ocean with it, so no real problems here. And it does have that nice screw down case back, which helps with the water resistance, and it has the screw down crown there. So overall, I think it is a pretty usable watch. It has a pretty standard power reserve, so what you would expect. The bezel and the crown are a little bit harder to use, but I'm not going to nitpick too much. I think the watch is incredibly legible. It has that nice blue dial, and it contrasts well with the white and polished indices. So for that reason, I would give this watch an 8 out of 10 in the usability category. Now moving on to the Christopher Ward. I think the Christopher Ward is just ever so slightly more usable than the Orient Ray II. It actually beats it in terms of water resistance rating. I'm not sure if you guys can see that on the dial, but the Christopher Ward is actually rated to 600 meters. Now, this is much more water resistant than any of us will actually ever use. So, it's debatable whether this will help you in everyday scenarios. As I said, this is more of a refined, classy piece for me. So I would never, really seriously take it diving. But it could do that, which is nice to know. Now, there are a few other things that kind of set this piece apart from the Orient, notably the bezel, which is pretty, it is a little hard to turn, but it's easier than the Orient, and it feels solid. There's less play. Obviously, these watches are priced very differently, but the quality does show on that aspect. The crown is also easier to unscrew. It kind of has that knurling pattern. I'm not sure if you guys can see that there, which does help your fingers kind of get it to unscrew and helps you wind the watch. Now, I don't have the Orient on the actual strap that it comes with because I want to show off the brand new strap available in our store. But the clasp on the Christopher Ward, the actual bracelet and the clasp, is of higher quality than on the Orient. Now, again, this could be attributed to price. Companies are known for cutting back on the bracelet, but it is nice to see that the Christopher Ward has a much better bracelet. And then obviously we have to talk about the glass. The Orient Ray II has a mineral crystal which can be scratched significantly more easily than the sapphire crystal on the Christopher Ward. So this is a very solid watch. It does look, more refined, maybe more dainty, if you will. Although, I don't know, I think it's kind of a sexy refined. But this is a very solid watch. I'm getting sidetracked here, but yeah, it is very durable, and I think for that reason it earns a 9 out of 10 in usability. So moving on to the final category of this comparison, we're talking about quality. Now, if you're paying really, really close attention, these watches are almost tied, are actually tied at this point. But I believe that the Christopher Ward just barely, ever so slightly, wins out in this category. But honestly, it's a feat that the Orient has been competing this well so far. So let's talk about the overall quality of the Orient Ray II. Now, as I said, this bezel has a little bit of play to it, which is not really what I would expect You know, I know this is a slightly lower price point, but I would like to see a better bezel on this watch. The crown is a little bit hard to turn, as I said before. Honestly, the dial and the refinement on the actual dial of the case, or of the watch, is very nice, and I'm not let down there. I am let down by this crystal. I wish it was a sapphire. Honestly, you know, if this was a sapphire crystal, I would run out and buy one right now, hands down. But also this this stamped crown here, yeah, this stamped signed crown, I think you guys can see that. That's actually not embossed into the metal. It just looks like it was printed onto the metal there. And same for the back. Now, I don't know. I think this is, again, above average for the price. I would give it an 8 out of 10 in quality. But I do think the Christopher Ward does kind of just barely beat out the Orient in this category. Now let's talk about why. Again, as I mentioned before, the clasp or the clasp and bracelet mechanism on the Christopher Ward is much better than on the Orient. But even for the price range, I think this bracelet is incredibly solid, and it's very comfortable. It can be a little bit uncomfortable on desks and whatnot, but I do think it does stand out from the crowd at this price point. Additionally, winding the watch is incredibly easy. It feels incredibly solid, as does the actual bezel on the watch, and there's very little play once the bezel is actually in the correct position here. So for these reasons, you know, also we have that nice guilloche pattern or galoche pattern. You can kind of say that the Orient attempts to do something like this with the blue sunburst dial, but it isn't actually texture on the dial. So I think the Christopher Ward just barely wins out here. And then, as I mentioned with the crown and case back in the last watch for the Orient, this is actually embossed into the metal. So the Christopher Ward logo sticks out just a little bit. And then also the case back here, if my camera will focus, is also embossed into the metal. So these are very small touches that add up to a 0.5 difference between these two watches. Now, if you've been paying attention, you will know that that makes the Christopher Ward the winner. Now, you guys might be thinking to yourself, you told us that we were going to be surprised by the result of this video, and honestly, I think you should be. The Christopher Ward is a watch that I know and love and use every single day. The Orient Ray II was loaned to me, but it's quickly growing on me. The fact that this watch costs a fourth of the price of the Christopher Ward, while only losing by 1 point, the total is 82 for the Orient Ray II and 83 for the Christopher Ward. That shows that the Orient is a outstanding piece. I have to give a big thumbs up to Orient. So that pretty much wraps up our comparison. Thank you guys for watching. I know it was a bit long, but I really hope that this was helpful to somebody. Leave a comment down below if you enjoyed the video or have any tips on how I could improve. So I am going to switch up the camera angles to give you a proper goodbye. I will see you in just a second. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching our full comparison of the Orient Ray II versus the Christopher Ward C60 Trident Pro. The C60 Trident Pro did only win out by 1 point, mostly because it is so much more expensive than the Orient Ray II. It's hard for me to actually, recommend the Christopher Ward over the Orient Ray II, simply because the Orient Ray II is such an awesome package for the price. Now, let me set these watches down, but thank you guys again so much for watching our comparison. Let me know what you thought, and if I left anything out, down in the comment section below. I'm always trying to improve these videos and the quality for all of you. Now, this is the part of the video where I will plug our Patreon. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to support the channel while getting access to exclusive monthly videos that come out every single month featuring me and my girlfriend, where we kind of goof and gaff about watches, just donate, head on over to the link in the description down below and contribute as little as $1 a month to get access to that. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. That helps out immensely. You'll get updated with whenever I put out a new video. So if you did like this and you want to see more, that's an easy way to get all of my new videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Josh. This is the Perfect Timepiece channel, and I will see you all next time. Bye.